Well, in a major counter to Chinese provocation, India has today decided to boycott the opening ceremony of Beijing Olympics. In fact, it has very categorically said that China has politicized the games. Also, this at a time when a fierce row has erupted after Rahul Gandhi had espoused China's clear vision. In fact, following this, an Australian news report has called out China's Galwan lies. This report says that not 4, but at least 38 PLA soldiers have been killed. Well, in the very latest, India has said that it is not going to allow these stunts and slights by China. This is how India is punishing it diplomatically as well.
Yes, we have seen the reports on this issue. It is indeed regrettable that the Chinese side has chosen to politicize an event like the Olympics. I wish to inform that our charge d'affaires of the Embassy of India in Beijing will not be attending the opening or the closing ceremony of the Beijing 22 Winter Olympics.
We have the findings of a 12-month investigation that's based on social media reports from inside China, from people from eyewitness accounts. Basically, it's given us a far greater understanding of what's occurred on the evening of June 15, 2020 in the clash between the Indian and Chinese forces. So we've ascertained that the death rate was much higher than it has been claimed by China. China said that there were 4 casualties, that it has awarded a medal to each. Now, that's long been in dispute by numerous parties, including India. Now, the information we have now suggests, or very strongly suggests, in fact, that the figure was 38, if not 40, but 38's the most accurate that we've ascertained. And many of these people were killed, or many of the Chinese soldiers were killed when they attempted to cross the Galwan River early in the battle, and were swept away or otherwise injured in battle.
The single biggest, you can ask anybody who understands, the single biggest strategic goal of India's foreign policy has been to keep Pakistan and China separate. This is fundamental for India. And what you have done is you have brought them together.
Well, in fact, let me go across to our consulting editor, Padmaja Joshi, who's joining us with more details. So, Padmaja, one after the other globally, China's lies, cowardice, as well as treachery are being pulled out. And it's not just restricted to hiding the number of casualties they had at Galwan. It's much beyond there, how they've insulted their own soldiers.
Absolutely. Now, remember, we've been saying this again and again for the last 2 years. The difference, and a massive difference between India and China is that all kinds of media in the country are completely controlled by the state. So it's very difficult to have any information come out, which is why even if there was an effort on social networking platforms like Weibo or other places for people to put out information, in fact, one journalist was acted against because she questioned the kind of tally that was being played down, the death toll in Galwan being played down by China, and she was dismissed from service and action was taken against her. Now, just to remind our viewers and to put into context, who is this man who was made as a torchbearer in the torch relay by China for the Olympics? This man is actually Qi Fabao. He is a commander of the PLA who was injured in the Galwan clashes. This, in fact, is a picture that has been put out of him by this Australian media report. Qi Fabao, if you just focus over here, can very visibly be seen with recovered head wounds. It's been a year and a half, and he had very clearly got serious head wounds, which have now healed. So this is a picture of him now. This is of him in uniform. And this is when he was chosen as a torchbearer. It was a very deliberate provocation, and India has responded in a clear and firm fashion, saying this is politicization of the games. We are not going to have our diplomat attend your opening and closing ceremony. It's as clear a message as there can be. Back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Padmaja. Well, let me go across to our panelists joining us today. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, he is a senior fellow at the IPCS. There's Arasan Singh, an author as well as a strategic analyst. Sanjay Jha, a former Congress leader here on the show. If I can come to you first, Colonel Singh. It's interesting, Padmaja has also outlined just how clear it is that China not only disowned their own deaths, even in deaths their families were betrayed. There were tombstones here on Times Now we have put out as well, for which the Chinese soldier had posted the picture of the grave and then he was jailed for it. So RSN Singh, why is it that there are those in India, our own people, our own elected representatives on the floor of the Indian Parliament today are coming out and saying that China has a very clear vision?
I knew it all along because people from my regiment were involved. So I have my sources of information that told me that, there was a huge landslide, and he says that any number of Chinese, he said very large number of Chinese just, went into the river and said they just disappeared. So I knew it all along. The only thing is that, we are in the habit of running down ourselves so much. But yes, for last 15, 20 years now, I have been on this, on television media, and I wouldn't have lasted for so long, if I didn't have credibility. So the second thing is that, one big takeaway I can tell you, is that, why are they advertising it so much? Because they don't consider it as a border clash. They consider it as a war. And, it is certain, when you advertise so much, it is very clear that there are misgivings, there is a disquiet amongst the people. And then, the Western Theatre Command of China, it has announced, it has taken to Twitter and it has held a competition telling the netizens that, the first 10 winners or first 15 winners will get stones from Galwan, as if it is, they are bringing, moon rocks, as Neil Armstrong did. So imagine how paranoid are they? Doesn't it give you a message? When you go on this kind of an overdrive, it clearly shows, as you said, that they want to, portray their,
and what's very surprising is that all of this, despite that, there are these attacks which are coming in, and perhaps Sanjay Jha, since you were part of the party, today there are the likes of former Congress mantris also, like Natwar Singh, coming out and saying that let's not forget how China and Pakistan have been allies since the 60s, something that the great-grandson of Nehru should remember after the betrayal, and so should Indira Gandhi's grandson should remember about the way China has always been hand in glove with Pakistan. The Gandhi should remember their history.
Well, there are 2 points here. The first point, I agree with what even Mr. Singh said. You see, China has very aggressive global ambitions. We all know it. They are in fact daring America on Taiwan. They have already, through their economic program of the One Belt Corridor, they're looking at Central Asia. They are in fact, people who follow political, kind of geopolitics closely will tell you that they are looking at an alliance with Russia down the line. And this is one of the reasons why, probably a lot of people in Europe are equally worried. So I think the larger issue that we need to keep in mind is they will use all kinds of, I would call, state-sponsored media, social media misinformation, and that is what dictatorial or totalitarian regimes do. So yes, we have to take what is out there with a pinch of salt. I think the point that I don't want to get into what the opposition is saying. I think the opposition has a constructive role. Let us not please run down an opposition for questioning a government. This is what democracy is about. I really feel that
that's very interesting that you say that it's only questioning the government, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, because there are many, and this includes Colonel Singh, who's part of our debate as well, who are saying in that zeal to question the BJP, it is Bharat that they have been targeting and falling into the trap of the Chinese lies.
Look, I don't know what the general this thing is, but on the 24th of June 2020, I had, using satellite images, this was just a few days after, we had shown the casualty figures as somewhere between 16 and 96 on the Chinese side, with a high likelihood that between 48 to 64 was the median figure. We didn't know the death percentages. The thing is, a lot of people that the Congress was citing were simply not putting up satellite imagery. That satellite imagery is really cheap. It's about $5 an image and things like that. Now, for major newspapers whose journalists act as political party agents, are you telling me that they can't afford $5 for editorial control? Or is the Congress party going to go off New York Times headlines and unverified reports? If that is the caliber of the opposition, then it's not a very good opposition, unfortunately, is it? See, the point is the opposition does itself no favors by being a joke. Yet when they behave like a bunch of clowns, then it weakens India. I think the opposition is the one that is doing more to undermine the idea of India by being an incredible joke that is simply not worthy of being taken seriously.
Right. So constructive role is what the opposition is expected to play. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. There's some big breaking news that we are quickly shifting focus across.